The Born to Win podcast highlights individuals excelling at high levels in their purpose and calling. This podcast is for anyone looking to get ahead in life and willing to take action and reach their full potential. Using C.H.A.M.P.S male mentoring model of the 3 E's, education, empowerment, and exposure, it means you too are born to win.
I'm born to win. Live. The Champs from Chicago be screaming all that. You are now tuned in to the Born to Win podcast. Champion. You are tuning in to the Born to Win podcast show with Vondale Singleton.
Yo, welcome everybody back live at another Born to Win podcast. Listen, I'm super excited that I have a newfound friend that's going to be joining and adding so much value to our Born to Win conversation. This gentleman is Terry Iverson.
I founded an organization called Champion now to change perceptions of manufacturing and hopefully change the culture of what people perceive manufacturing careers to be. A lot of people, say that manufacturing has left our shores, and that's not true. You have Harry Mosier that's part of the reshoring initiative to bring manufacturing back. And a lot of the manufacturing has gone overseas, but it's the low skill set that's gone overseas.
And we connected because he saw a video of me talking about the C.H.A.M.P.S male mentoring program and reached out, I believe through LinkedIn, and basically said, hey, man, I created this concept. I have a book called Champions Now. I want to get in your hands. I was inspired by what I saw, and that C.H.A.M.P.S just resonated with me. So he took it a step further. He sent the book to me, but then we invited him into our space. And let me tell y'all, he came in and had an opportunity to engage with our young men at Gary Comer College Prep. And he asked a simple question. And listen, everybody, he said, does anyone know what manufacturing is? And he took us to school. And so I'm super excited to bring in the Michael Jordan of manufacturing, Mr. Terry Iverson. Welcome, Terry, to the Born to Win podcast, my brother. How you doing today?
Dale, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we definitely have a lot to catch our audience on, and this is going to be a good learning session. And my hope is that we can bring in all the people who will be watching or listening into this conversation that we're having. I think it's an important conversation, and I think you have a lot to teach us. So, again, welcome. Can you just go off the top and just tell everybody who you are and tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, my name's Terry Iverson, and this is my family's in manufacturing in the Midwest. I'm in Chicago as well, in the suburban area. And my grandfather got us started in manufacturing in 1925. And I run a machine tool distributorship and rebuilding company. We have about 14 people in the company. And this is my 40th year. So I've been so blessed to be able to work with some of the leading manufacturers in the country and in the Midwest, making all sorts of things from motorcycle components to automotive components to aerospace to military. And it's been a fascinating career that I've been able to be blessed with for 40 years now.
Amazing. For 40 years. So, when you were in class, you talked a lot about your father. You shared stories about your grandfather. And I kind of want to just add in some context. You've carried this manufacturing company generations. And that's a great responsibility because, it's one of those things where, yes, it's manufacturing, but this is personal to you, right? This is coming from a great lineage of those who left legacy and have placed it in your hands. And how long have you been the CEO of the company now?
Well, when I first started in 1980, I was in outside sales, Vondale, up in Wisconsin. And I didn't really know a lot about manufacturing. So even some of my customers were even mentoring me on what they could teach me as a young man. I was probably 22 years old when I started. And by the time, I would say for about the last, probably for the last 30 years, maybe 35, I've been running the company. My father had some a cancer, colon cancer, in about 1985, and he kind of metaphorically handed the keys to the shop to me when he went in for surgery and said, this is yours from here on out. I didn't really take the title of president and CEO till probably 15 to 20 years ago, but I still ran the company. I was a big believer that as the son of the boss, a fancy title could hurt me more than help me.
Yep. And one of the things that I said a little bit earlier is that you came to our C.H.A.M.P.S class.
I did.
And when you asked that question about, and it was a knowledge question, do you guys have heard, what do you know about manufacturing? And there were very few of our young men that raised their hands. Were you surprised by that? And if so, what went through your mind? Is this typical that you see?
Well, there was two young men off to my left, to your right, that were brave enough to kind of do this, just kind of barely raise their hand. And I give them credit for raising their hand. But no, it's not surprising. I see this a lot. I talk to a lot of young people, and I talk to a lot of students in class. And not surprisingly, people don't know a lot about manufacturing in this country, unfortunately. And my goal is to change that and to change our culture, not to necessarily just focus on the importance of manufacturing, but to make young people aware that there's just fantastic opportunities that abound for them in careers in manufacturing.
And I think it's really important, Terry, to your point, is we have to be better at educating with information so that people can then digest that information and make a decision. And the thing that I loved about you coming to our class is this was something new for us. We've had all kinds of different presenters and speakers and of all different types of fields, but I was just like, man, this is going to be great because I'm learning, they're learning, we're learning together. And then you're also learning about the gaps and some of the needs that we have to really bring this whole manufacturing conversation to the forefront. And one of the things that we talk a lot about in our community, and when I'm meeting and asking students and kids alike, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a very, very, very predictable answer. I want to be an NBA player. I want to go play basketball. I want to go to the NFL. I want to play baseball, or I want to be entertainer, a rapper of some sort. And there's nothing wrong with those fields, and we appreciate the arts and entertainment and sports. But at the same time, the dire concern of the limited amount of people that make it at a high level in those fields are very slim. And so I was really excited to have you come in and share, about your family business, about you, about your mission around manufacturing, but then just your passion around mentorship. And I think that's where we kind of connected the dots. So how can young people from the South Side of Chicago learn more about manufacturing careers and learn that they could be right for them? And then not only let me open up the conversation a little bit more, not just South Side urban American youth, but urban American youth that don't really know about manufacturing. Let me open it up that way.
Well, when I was young, there wasn't a lot of easy ways to learn about manufacturing or anything for that matter. And young people are really blessed because they have a world literally at their fingertips with computers. And you can look on YouTube and you can search all sorts of things about how things are made. There's a show called How It's Made. There's all sorts of videos on YouTube about manufacturing processes. But there's all sorts of exciting things. I put a lot just to kind of get this out early on. CHAMPION is an acronym that stands for Change How American Manufacturing is Perceived in Our Nation. And so basically that's my goal, is to change the perceptions. But every October there's a event called Manufacturing Day, and the Midwest is one of the heart and souls of the country in manufacturing. And so all in the Midwest or all around the country, manufacturers like myself and people I sell to, they open their doors and bring people in to see how current, modern, clean, challenging, and technologically savvy manufacturing is today. So that's just a couple ideas and a couple ways that people can learn about it. When I talk to young people, and I think I told your class this, I said, when I was young, I didn't even know what to ask, and there was no easy way to ask. I was fortunate that I learned a lot about manufacturing because my family was in it. Even though I grew up in Florida, my family was in Chicago. I had the opportunity because my family had their whole career in it. But if you at least know that it exists, you can do the research and you can learn about it. And, I was good in math and science, and to be good in manufacturing, it helps to be good in math and science.
So I do think, and thank you for sharing those points, but I do think there is a miseducation going on in our educational system as we see it now about the manufacturing field. Why do you think there's such a gap in that?
Well, for so long, first of all, somewhere going back probably in the 80s, Vondale, someone made the terrible mistake to say that our economy was going to be a service-based economy. And if you study history and if you study economic history globally, you'll find that every nation that has wealth has a manufacturing base, and a good manufacturing base. So this country's middle class is totally responsible, or I should say manufacturing has always been responsible for the middle class in this country. So having said that, parents for a long time have felt that they always want the best for their children, and that's the way it should be. Now, what is the best for their children? That's a whole different story. There's a change going on in the industry and in the marketplace, in that jobs are not necessarily four-year degreed positions any longer. There's, schools today think of the prototypical path of just being a 4 or 5 year college degree. And what's happening is you're finding a lot of manufacturing companies are not requiring the diplomas that they were requiring. They're requiring a skill, they're requiring knowledge, but a lot of times you don't have to go in six-figure debt, either a student or a parent, to get that education and to get that skill. So the marketplace is changing. We need more skilled workers. There's a huge void with the retirees, the baby boomers like myself, that are retiring out of manufacturing, and they're leaving this big gap. And it's a skills gap, but it's a gap of they have needs and they don't have enough people to fill the needs.
And so I want to go into a little bit, and we'll kind of tie this loop in on the back end. But I want to talk a little bit about the book. What, number one, inspired you to write America's Greatest Champion, Finding America's Greatest Champion book? And can you talk about just like your vision around champions now, the initiative that you started, and just like the parallels you see with the C.H.A.M.P.S program, and why you feel like there's a great parallel there, a future there with our relationship?
Well, first of all, I'm honored to have met you and hear of your program. It's really inspiring to find people that are like-minded and that have passion and vision around the same concept, especially something as important as mentoring. But to get back to start with your first question, the reason I wrote the book, Finding America's Greatest Champion, is that I felt compelled in all this. I did a deep dive in education, in technical education, and I was on a lot of high school advisory boards and technical college advisory boards. I had a national board in Washington that I sat on, and one down in Florida. And I thought, you know what, if I don't take this information and if I don't, pardon the analogy, preach it, or at least try to help people learn about it, I can only speak to one class at a time, and I can only talk to one student at a time. And that's just not a big enough impact for me. Mm-hmm. I've been blessed. You and I've talked about that you've been blessed, and you feel it's our obligation to share. My whole adult life, I grew up with mentors that helped me tremendously. And in previous conversations, Vondale, you've shared that you've had the same blessing for you. And when you are so fortunate you could have gone right or you could have gone left, and a mentor came into your life and changed your life, you feel obligated to give back and to pay that forward and do that for someone else, or do that tenfold or 100-fold. And you and I share that, and our organizations and our foundations share that. So that's the reason I wrote the book. As far as America's Greatest Champion, that definition in the book, manufacturing is the greatest champion for this country, but so is every young person that we mentor, and so is our children, and so is the female gender that's underrepresented in the workforce, and have great opportunities if they just pursue, or at least know about it and pursue them, and then we support and encourage them. So as far as the two organizations, mentoring, I coached travel soccer when I was a young adult. I was a soccer and football player as a young man. And I coached travel soccer, both up to U19 men and U19 women. And I felt that was my opportunity to teach them about soccer, but more importantly, to teach them about life, and to teach them about being accountable and being a good citizen and being a good friend and being a responsible adult. And so that I took and wrote that element into my book. And when I read about your C.H.A.M.P.S program, I'm like, okay, besides the obvious sharing, 4 or 5 letters in the names of our organizations, we're destined to have known each other.
I definitely believe it. I know it for a fact. And I can't wait to continue to build out what this will look like, our partnership, our relationship. And speaking of which, can you just talk a little bit about your upbringing and just some of the lessons that you've learned? And you talked a little bit about them in the classroom, but I do think there's some synergy with some of the things that you've learned in your life that you can kind of share with us, our young men, and our demographic as well.
Absolutely. Well, my father was in my life, but when I was 6, my mom and dad split and divorced. And there's a lot of divorce in today's world. So, I don't feel that I was at a disadvantage. That's just what it was, right? And so consequently, I moved to Florida with my mom. And unfortunately, my mom had as a single parent, she struggled. She had some alcohol problems, and so that forced me to grow up very quickly. And once again, I don't think, I never said woe is me. So I grew up and I became responsible. And one thing my dad taught me and told me, because, we weren't living together, so his lessons were few and far between, but they were very strong lessons. He said, Terry, there's 2 things I'm going to tell you. One, if you want to go out and have a good time in the evening, this is when I worked summers and I was a teenager. He says, that's fine. He says, but do not be late for work, and do not come into work and let what you did last night to have fun, whatever the case may be, impact your work ethic. And your work ethic is your branding of yourself, of your character. And then he says, and if you get in trouble, you're accountable for that. You're accountable for the good things you do, and you're accountable for the bad things you do. Do not depend on me to come bail you out. He meant that literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
If you get yourself in trouble, you make sure that you can get yourself out of trouble. And so, I became an adult very quickly, knowing that I was responsible for myself. And my mom tried, she tried her best. She worked hard and she provided, food on the table. But I had to help her through, some of her struggles. And the mentors that I mentioned, my coaches, my teachers, many of which I wrote about in the book, I might not have taken the right path if it wasn't for them. So I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for my upbringing. I never saw it as a I never felt bad that I was disadvantaged. It was just part of my path, but I became accountable for that path.
Yes, sir. And I'm so glad that you continue to persevere through those obstacles. And what we teach is these obstacles, they will come. But in the end, you win because of the information that you access that push you past these obstacles that you face. And sometimes it comes in the form of a mentor, a coach, a pastor, a good Samaritan just along the road that see you struggling and know it's right to help. And so we have to be open to receiving the answer to whatever situation that we're in. And I'm glad that you didn't give up in the midst of everything that you have gone through. I do want to ask a little bit about what is your vision for the book? Do you have other books in mind? How can people get a hold of the book? Where can we get more information about the book?
Well, first of all, the book itself is a number of concepts and facts and figures about manufacturing, and it's also telling a lot of the opportunities that young people can take advantage. And then there's a lot of people that I brought in to talk about mentoring, to talk about parenting, and so forth. But as far as where they can find it on Amazon. They can find it at championnow.org, which there's a hardback and a paperback. There's also an audiobook, which is on Audible. I think you can get the ebook on Kindle. So as far as the vision going forward, my wife had indicated that, I should write separate books, that we have 4 different audiences: students, parents, educators and guidance counselors, and industry members. And I said, honey, I can't write 4 books. I'd be lucky if I can write 1 book. And so I put everything into 1 book. Now, having said that, there really is a lot of information, and it would be nice to have each book have its own edition. This is the start of, which I hope to have Vondale in this one. This is the educator and guidance counselor edition that I'm working on. And I interviewed probably over 50 to 60 people initially. And so I'm going to bring in new people like yourself. And once I break it down into individual books, which is not done yet, then I'll have one for the students that they can read, one for the parents that they can read, and so forth. And so I hope to also have a workbook component, so I can have a list of questions and a list of challenges to who's reading the book. And then it can lead them into a path of whether manufacturing's right or whether it's not. And whether or not, their perception changes, and all their versions in each edition. And that workbook will have a set of guidelines and questions and answers, so that if you're a student, you can figure out if there's a path other than college, or if college is your path. If you're a parent, how you can support your child and help make decisions with your child. If you're an educator and you don't know about these positions in manufacturing or anything other than college itself. And if you're an industry member, how you can engage.
Excellent. So speaking of which, who would you say are some of your past or current mentors, and how did they influence you to become the man that you are today?
Oh, my dad and my uncles would be the first. First of all, I had many, but I won't, go too far into this. My dad and my 2 uncles are by far the biggest mentors, and they're very successful. I think the one guiding principle that you'll find in the book between my dad and my two uncles is integrity. Integrity is everything. And with integrity, honesty. I think if you went to my 3 adult children and asked if there was one message that I drove home every day and every night, they would say honesty. Past that, there was my AP Calculus and AP Physics teacher. He was a mentor to me. I kept in touch with him and included him in the book. I had a coach. I had several coaches, but my football and soccer coaches, I was an athlete, and I played 5 or 6 years of varsity athletics in high school. They were definitely mentors. You know, my work ethic came, a large part of it in part came from my athletic regimen, and that was a huge part. And then one of my coworkers, John Comparini, unfortunately, he just passed away, just before the COVID outbreak or just after the COVID outbreak. And I worked with John for, my goodness, 25 plus years. And he was just a dear, sweet man. And I miss him. My uncle just passed, one of my uncles just passed in December as well. So those were two mentors that just left this earth recently, unfortunately.
Wow. Condolences to you. And here's what I want to let everyone know. Be open to the process of having others pour into your life. Different stages, different reasons. Sometimes people are in your life for a season or a time or a moment, but I don't want you to miss the opportunity to grow, to expand, and ultimately in the end, you'll be able to kind of look back and see the marks that individuals have made. Just like Terry, he mentioned quite a few people, and he's really blessed to be able to mention, his uncles and relatives and family members, his dad, his grandfather, all of these individuals who played a huge part and seeing this great man that you see. Now, he mentioned a powerful word, integrity. That's a very powerful word, because you can have talent, you can have skill, you can have gifts, but if you don't have the integrity that goes along with your talent, skills, gifts, and abilities, you can lose it all. And I wanted to, speaking of books, ask you, what are your 3 top favorite books that you've either read or gleaned from?
Well, I had to really think about that. And with your Born to Win premise of your podcast, I think the ones that I chose are appropriate. One was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. I read that, and I'm not a big reader. I write more easily than I read. I have a very short attention span. To the young men out there that are like me. If you have a short attention span, you really need to focus to be able to get through something, especially a book. But Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was early in my career, and it helped me immensely. Probably a second book would probably be the How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Yeah. I'm a very social person. I've been in sales my entire life. And even if someone's not in sales, we're all in sales. Whether it's selling yourself and your capability, or whether it's selling a product, or whether it's selling an idea, we're all in sales. Mm-hmm. So How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a great one. And these books have been around for a while. And then the other thing that I would say is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And that's, has much more of a faith message than anything. And, but I think it's appropriate, especially when we're talking for young people.
Excellent. And again, they do say leaders are readers, but sometimes people have different learning styles on how they gather information. And that's why we never tell one of the young men that we mentor this is how you should get the information. But we do say get the information. Some people are auditory learners. Some people are bodily kinesthetic learners. But however we learn, we just need to be learning. And I think that's the most important thing. So thank you for sharing those. If you had the opportunity to have a billboard where millions or billions of people will see it, what words would you put on that billboard, and tell us why?
You know, I've been thinking about that one, and that's the $20 million question, right?
Exactly.
Well, you know what? It would probably be something along, let's say it was on your side of town, and you and I've talked about, the young people you're trying to inspire. And I would have a message of hope is not lost. It's all about the journey, and it's all about learning, and it's all about understanding. And if people are in an environment, for example, when I was a young person, hope was not lost. I never saw it as being, that I was disadvantaged. And if you label yourself as being in a disadvantaged situation, that's going to hurt you more than if you label yourself as this is just an obstacle, just like you said, Vondale. So hope is not lost. There's a career for you, and there's a path to success for you. And in my case, in my messaging, manufacturing is a career path to prosperity and to success, but people don't know that. But there's other paths to success. So those people that think they're in a situation that's less than perfect, you know what? We all, at one point in our life, have situations that are similar. Now, some of us have more of those than others, but don't feel alone. Don't feel like it's just you. And don't feel that everyone that is in a situation of success has been there from day one. They had to climb up to that and elevate themselves to that. And so there's greatness in every young person. I really believe that. And I think it's up to mentors and it's up to the individuals to understand that and to find out where their greatness is and how to get to that and where their path to success is. And that's a different definition for everybody.
Yes. Hope. Even against all odds, still have hope. Believe.
Even with COVID-19.
Yes. Even with COVID-19, right? Still hope. And so, but we have to shore up these gaps that we have on the pandemic and the epidemic of gun violence and just all the disparities that we have as a community. And I believe one of the ways that we draw out, these disparities and put them out on the table is create opportunities. And the more opportunities that we have and that we're exposed to, we can grab a hold of, right? And work our way out of any situation that we're in. That's why I say we're born to win in every situation in life. In any situation in life, we are born to win. And that born to win means that just because I'm a human being and God gave me life, that means that he created me with a purpose. And as long as I'm going after those things will line up to my call, to my life, to help me fulfill that purpose. And so what advice can you give a smart, college-driven, they just got out of college and they believe they're going to change the world, and we want them to continue to believe that, but they're going into a real world, right, where realities may not come to them in a form of instant gratification on what they see and believe. What advice should they ignore?
What should they ignore? Well, first of all, anyone that tells you to do something that isn't true to you, I would ignore that. Anyone that tells you to do anything less than the truth, and honesty and integrity base, I would ignore that. And you know what? I would ignore anyone that says short term, make a decision for short term. I was always taught to look for the long term. I was always looked to take the long methodical way to success. And, you get an opportunity. What you need to do is align your passion and what ignites you and fires you up and you're passionate about, and make sure that you're doing that for the rest of your life. If it aligns with manufacturing, that's great. Many people don't even know what it is. So, just getting the word out there so that they know that that's an option. But if it's not, that's fine. Do what you think. I talk about this in the book. Do what you're passionate about. Figure out, how you can spend many, many hours a day doing it, and the money will come. The money will come. But don't put yourself in a box just because someone said this is right for you. Think about it, consider it, listen to them, but then do your homework and then look in here and say, is that right for me? Is that who I am? And, but you have to always, in my opinion, you always have to be integrity-based. The two things that I tell young people, and I hope this resonates with your young audience, is that arrive early, leave late, and tell the truth. And if you just do those three things, Vondale, if you show up early and showing interest, and you stay late and you want to finish the job and do a good job, and you tell the truth, I don't care what talent level or skill level you are at, you're going to have people say, come here, young man, come here, young lady, I'm going to help you succeed.
So sound. Thank you so much for the sound wisdom that you provided on this Born to Win podcast. Thank you so much for your time and your dedication to pay it forward. And I just love everything C.H.A.M.P.S, just because I believe we are winners. And Terry, you're a winner. Again, man, thank you so much for your time. Any last words you want to share with the audience?
No, I just want to say, study your organization, study Champion now, look for the book. I hope it'll inspire you. And Vondale, I'm blessed and I'm thankful that we met. And I thank you for the opportunity today. And I'm very much looking forward to the future with you and I together.
Thank you for listening to the Born to Win podcast. Would you consider making a donation to C.H.A.M.P.S? We are looking to provide senior class care packages and other essential items like food, hygiene, and toiletries for the families of our C.H.A.M.P.S mentees. You can donate via Cash App at $C.H.A.M.P.S Mentoring or PayPal at paypal.me/C.H.A.M.P.S Mentoring. Or you can always visit our webpage, champsmentoring.com, and click on the donate button. Thank you.